Hey yo, retro gamers, finally got around to getting one of my favourite consoles full of stains from the ages, looking from this to this. I've been waiting a long time to finally get this done, so we're pretty excited about jumping into this. So what do we need to get this done? Well, a couple of things. We need some spray cleaner, some isopropyl alcohol, some air in a can, and the main ingredient, retrobright. And of course we need some UV light. This is a strip. We need some foil and some cling film. And of course, a little screwdriver set. Everything that is essentially needed is in the description box below. Now just to mention, this is a cover that I purchased from Etsy. I don't recommend that one because it's a bit flimsy and it didn't really last that long. So let's give this Saturn an open. Pretty simple with the Saturn, as there's just 5 screws that are scattered around and you just need a Phillips screwdriver. Very common screwdriver to pick up. Now that we have all those screws out, let's lift open the lid. There are a couple of more screws that you can find inside the lid, but I just took out the reset button and the open lid button. They're just kind of clips that you can feed out. You will notice as I remove the buttons, you can see the original colour of what the Saturn used to be when it was brand new. So hopefully we can match that. So now we get to the main board itself. There's a couple of screws now we want to remove from the control port, and there's just a bunch of Phillips screwdrivers all around this motherboard. So it's going to take a while. Now this power board does look quite different to the original one. That's because I replaced it with an upgrade by Bitfunk. If you want to check out that upgrade power board video, I'll put that in the description box. But it's essentially the same type of steps. Just one screw holding the board down, and as well you got the back screws holding that connector. Let's pull that out. And we do have this protective casing. Now there's a lot more screws that are scattered around. We just want to make sure we get everything out. Now careful with the CD drive, this is a power cable connected to the motherboard, and then we have the data cable there. So be careful with that, as I did find that quite flimsy. So just pull it gently. And let's get rid of these controller ports. I wasn't really too sure if I wanted to unveil the casing out of this so I can clean inside. I just thought it would be nice and clean anyway, as this thing hasn't been touched. So I just put that aside. As you can see, there's a lot of cables that are attached to the main board to the controller ports. That's because this unit was originally modded to be region free. But that did die out. Now for the last thing, which is the power button. There's a couple of screws there, and now we've got everything out. As we are using quite a lot of liquids, I wouldn't really worry about the stickers that are placed on the console, as I did find no problem of them peeling. The last thing we want to try and get undone is this controller port. So there's just 5 little screws that we want to get undone to access, so we can give this controller a good cleaning. One tip I recommend is with all these screws that you got, I would put them in different little pots and label them in the section of the console so you don't get them mixed up. Now we got all these buttons popping out, so be careful you don't lose any. I just put these in an individual plastic box so I can give them a bit of a good clean. So I just put all this aside, and the D-pad is a little bit different to other controllers, as this is held by a clip on the one side and fed through there. So you just want to get a little flathead and poke that out. Again, make sure that all your buttons and everything is kept in one place so you don't get anything mixed up. Now you may see that everything is pretty clean already with the Saturn. This is because I recently did give it a good cleaning, so I'm not going to go too intense with much soap or sponges. One thing I like to do is with all these loose screws, I just like to soak them in some isopropyl alcohol. There are some other tips, like soak them in Coke to get rid of the rust, and also some WD-40. So I just left them there over to dry. Now this board is a bit stinking, so I'm going to use this alcohol isopropyl again and just use a Q-tip and go through every nook and cranny to make sure that we can just get this board looking like new. So as you can see, only a couple of seconds and there's already some grime. This did take me quite a while to do because I wanted to make sure I did a good job of this. We use isopropyl alcohol because it's a liquid that evaporates straight away, so we got no problems and worries about any liquid staying there. Now that we got all that done, I questioned about cleaning this and I thought I'd just leave it. So I'm just going to clean the shielding, as there were a couple of marks, but it's not really necessary to do. So I'm just using the spray to give this a wipe down with my little mitten. And when we've got all that sprayed and got every nook and cranny, I want to use some more isopropyl alcohol because this is good for getting rid of any stains or any marks, and it does polish up the plastic pretty nicely and removing any other liquids on the plastic, so it gives us a good clean surface to work on. Now it's time to do the back with my cleaning mitten. And let's do these controller parts. And they're looking pretty clean and nice already. Now with that out of the way, we're on to step 2, preparing your bleaching tank. We need a plastic box to work with. I picked one of those storage boxes that you can get from Home Bargains for $5. We need to cover this box up and wrap it with foil. This will then reflect the light around and generate some heat and block some other light coming in. I did later change my process by using some pricked stick glue that you can cheaply pick up and just smeared it everywhere inside the box, and then just placed all the foil and cover that plastic box completely. With the UV light strip, I used a 5 meter in length, but this one does have some wiring left open at the bottom, which effectively you can then daisy chain it to extend the cable length. I'm not using that, so I just covered this up with insulation tape. Didn't want any shocks there, thank you very much. The other end is open as well, and you need to screw and match the positive and negative. Pretty simple job. It did not come with a plug though, so I simply used a 12-volt one that did the job pretty simply, and I used the same one as the use for my Saturn board, so that was pretty nice and handy. So now our bleaching tank is all assembled and ready to go. Now we're on to step 3, which is slapping on your retrobright. So we want to put a good dollop and make sure this is smeared everywhere in every nook and cranny, so and then all the dyeing colour gets spread out evenly. This does take quite a while, but you want to make sure you have a good job. And then when that is done, you want to wrap everything out in cling film so it keeps everything airtight and nothing gets stripped out. So take your time with this. I use a toothbrush, which really helped a lot just to get in those nook and crannies. Now I'm on to the front piece here, so again just take your time and be patient, and make sure you wear gloves because I did have a stained finger for a couple of hours. Now that all my pieces are wrapped up and ready, we want to prepare our bleaching tank. So we want to put it in, but make sure that each UV light is hitting each angle of the plastic to make sure each part gets dyed correctly. I did this process for 2 days, and after the first day I just repeated and wiped off all the retrobright and pasted it back on. Apparently that is what's recommended to do to get better results. So after 2 days, things are looking like this. And oh yeah, so far I'm very happy of how this is turning out, but of course I'll get a better impression of when it's all put back together. Again, I do recommend taking your time and not rushing things. Personally, I always find putting back consoles takes a longer time, and the guarantee for me personally is missing a screw here or there. I should have stored the screws and labeled them up correctly. I will have to do this to amend this problem in any future products. I ended up only missing 1 screw to my surprise, but I did have a fatality, as one of the L buttons on this controller, I did end up losing this trigger button, which is so annoying as it's one of my personal favourite controllers for 2D gaming. But I did later find that little bit of plastic that does help trigger the button, but it was missing that little spring, so this was rendered useless, as I couldn't find that anywhere. Now with the longest process over, let's put on this top cover. It was a bit fiddly because of that new power board cable poking out, so I just had to make sure that was down firmly. And wow, this is looking pretty awesome. I can now finally experience and see how this original color of this console was sold back in 1995. Man, I've been after doing this for a long time, and it was worth the wait. Well, would I recommend you doing this to your own console? That is a big yes. There are better ways to do this by using a liquid method. So you can submerge the entire content into this bleached water so you can get this dyed out more evenly, but more equipment and know-how is needed. You could also include extra UV lights to speed up the process, but again, that is further setting up and using more electricity and power. This has now inspired me to dig up more consoles for my storage, so keep an eye out for that for this channel. So as always, thanks for watching, And if you liked it, hit that button. If you want to help and support, click subscribe, leave a comment below, and I catch you lot on my next video.